Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. How's it going? So today's video I'm really pumped to do because I borrowed the idea from someone. I didn't come up with it myself, and I thought it was such a cool idea that I really wanted to film it myself. So, whoops, sorry, I'm shaking my little desk here. So I totally borrowed this idea from a recent collab between Lacie from Spooky Lips and Fat Hips and Georgia Harris. And they did a collab which was called Favorite Shade in the Palette. And I thought that was such a cool concept because we all have that. We all buy palettes, and let's be real. We always buy that palette for those several shades that we really enjoy. I buy palettes for, you know, the color stories and the quality of the eyeshadows and a number of reasons. But if I have to be honest with myself, there's always a couple of shades in the palette that I'm like, you, I can't wait to put you on my eyeballs. The little twist I'm going to put on my video is I'm actually going to swatch for you not only the shades that ended up being my favorites, but also the shades that I originally thought would be my favorites, because those don't always overlap. Sometimes they do, but sometimes they really don't. Sometimes I buy a palette and I think some of the shades will be my favorites, but then after I use the palette for a while, it turns out other shades in the palette totally top my list. So what the girls did was they picked out 20 palettes, so basically approximately 20 swatches. For me it will be slightly more because I also have the additional shades I want to show you, but I'm also going to stick to 20 palettes because I think that's realistic and I think my camera cannot take more than that. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so the first palette I want to start off with is the Zuri palette from Zuri Cosmetics. This is one of my newest makeup palette additions, and I've shown you this palette. I've used it several times in videos. I absolutely love the color story of this palette. I think it's so unique, but my eye gets immediately attracted by this blue over here. So we are going to swatch the blue because this is one of the shades that originally attracted me the most. However, the shade that ended up being my absolute favorite is this one over here, which is called Tigress, and it's the most beautiful, unique tangerine orange. I have nothing like it in my collection. So let's swatch the shades that I originally was attracted to on this side of my arm, and then this here is a swatch for the shade that I am totally 100% hopelessly in love with, and that is Tigress. Zuri, the blue shade, is absolutely phenomenal, but there is something about this shade and the fact that I have nothing quite like it in my collection that just, I can't get over this shade. I want to wear it all the time. If you follow me on Instagram, you know that I've been using this shade all the time, and if you don't, please go follow me because I post my looks daily. It's like my little makeup looks diary, and I think it's, you know, I think it's a fun place to go. So check out my Instagram, I'll link it in the description box below. By the way, another thing, I'm not going to talk and speak to the quality of the eyeshadows because that's a completely different story. I just want to go through the swatches a little bit quicker. So I'm not going to waste too much time talking about each of the shadows and how they blend and etc. because we don't have time for that. Alright, the next palette I want to show you is the Deuce palette from, I don't want to say the word Deuce because I think that sounds stupid, from Juvia's Place. And me being me, the shade that my eye was immediately drawn to is this mint green over here, but what ended up being my favorite, very surprisingly, is the shadow that I least expected to like in this palette, and that is this beautiful orchid kind of purple. This shade is called Custard, which is a little bit weird because I've never seen custard in this color, or at least not very often. I think the names might have been swapped. I think I heard Lacie mention that as well, between berry mousse and custard over here, because this looks much more like a custard and this much more like a berry mousse. Totally irrelevant. So this beautiful green here is the shade I expected to love the most, and I still do. I really like this shade, it's beautiful. But there is something about this bubblegum berry orchid color that just is so unique to my collection. I love having things that are unique because at this point I have so many eyeshadows that whenever I find something that's truly unique to my collection, I'm always like, yes, finally something I don't have. Like when I bought the palette, I totally thought that this would be a dupe for Hotsy Totsy from Sugar Pill, and I got nothing against Hotsy Totsy. It's a beautiful hot pink shade, but I don't use hot pink shades very often. I just don't think that pinks and hot pinks flatter me much, so I don't wear them a lot. So when I bought the palette, I was like, a hot pink, whatever. But it's not a hot pink, it's a beautiful orchid purple color, and it's really unique. Okay, next up we have another favorite from Juvia's Place. This is my Magic palette. The Magic palette is a little bit more difficult for me just because I feel like these two top rows here and these two bottom rows here can almost be considered two separate palettes. When I bought the palette, my eye was immediately attracted by this purple over here as well as this beautiful green over here, and even though I absolutely love the purple, I love the purple, it's just such a beautiful like lavender bluish type of purple. I have to say there is something about this green and its vibrancy that just wins my heart over and over again. Look how beautiful and vibrant that is. Okay, next up I think I want to talk about some of my sugar pill quads, and a lot of you guys probably have your sugar pill shades housed in like one of those pro sugar pill palettes, but I still have mine in the original quads. I'm never going to get rid of the original quads because I think they're super cute, and I'm not someone who likes depotting things. I think the packaging is like part of the magic of an eyeshadow palette, and I'm never going to depot anything. Side note. Anyway, this is the Heartbreaker quad. And the Heartbreaker quad basically has all the 4 shades that describe me in one place. I love blues, greens and purples, and this eyeshadow quad is absolutely beautiful. But if you followed my channel for a while, you will know that this shade here, Acid Berry, is my absolute favorite. Acid Berry doesn't really swatch very well, but it's one of the most beautiful chartreuse greens. So this shade right here is Acid Berry, and I have feelings when it comes to chartreuse greens, so for me personally this is my absolute favorite shade in that quad. Next up we have my oldest sugar pill quad, and that is the Burning Heart quad. This has somewhat warmer shades, and originally I wanted to own this purple here, Poison Plum, because Tori from Biohazardous Beauty always talked about Poison Plum, and it is to date one of the most gorgeous purples that I've ever seen on the market. But to me personally the standout was here, this gorgeous red, which is called Love Plus, for one simple reason. I didn't own reds before that, and I don't think I appreciated red the way I do after I have owned this palette. So this here would be a swatch for Poison Plum. Poison Plum is phenomenal. If you're looking for a good matte purple, you should own Poison Plum. But Love Plus was the shadow that taught me to love reds. This is such a beautiful true red. I absolutely love wearing this eyeshadow. I only have one more sugar pill quad that I want to show you, and that is the Feline Fancy eyeshadow palette. It was from the Feline Fancy collection. It was a limited edition Valentine's collection. I do believe you might be able to get these as singles nowadays, but I don't promise anything, so don't quote me on it. So I bought this palette for 2 shades, and those are the beautiful metallic red as well as this shade over here, which is called Sealed with a Kiss. Sealed with a Kiss has kind of like a goldeny, bronzy base with a very strong pink shift to it. It is my absolute favorite shade in here, but I'm gonna swatch the red one for you as well, because the red one was one of the reasons I bought the palette. So this is the red shade, which is also one of the most beautiful metallic reds I've ever seen. I absolutely adore this shade, Sealed with a Kiss. I wish it was a little bit more foiled and metallic, because this is more like a satin shimmer. But that being said, it's a very gorgeous eyeshadow. And the duochrome is so strong. I love this shade. Next up I have something which is a little bit more controversial, if you will. I was doubting a little bit whether I want to include the palettes from Kat Von D in this video, but I do, because first of all it gives me an opportunity to tell you once again that I'm no longer going to support Kat Von D. If you are new to my channel or you don't know what was up with Kat Von D, basically she recently announced that she's anti-vax and anti-science, and as someone who has dedicated half of their life by now to studying and practicing science, I'm just not on board for that. I'm just not in for it. And I'm no longer going to buy products from Kat Von D, because I just don't believe in people who in the 21st century refuse to see scientific reason. I don't know. As someone who, you know, does science on a daily basis, and I can tell you, being a researcher is really not an easy job. It's not all rainbows and unicorns. We don't make discoveries every day. We work really hard, and most of the time we don't really get a lot of like payoff for our efforts. That's the topic of a totally different video. If you're interested in the life of a researcher, we can talk about it in a different video. But the point I wanted to make is that I want to stop being angry at the makeup, like the Kat Von D makeup that I own, because I think that's stupid. The makeup didn't do anything wrong, she did. So I want to stop being angry with my eyeshadow palettes. I want to be able to enjoy them again. So some of them have been my favorites in the past few years, and I want to show you the favorite shades that I have in them. So that's why I decided to include the Kat Von D palettes in this video. And I'm going to start with my ultimate favorite palette from her, and that is the Metal Matte palette. The Metal Matte palette has a very wide variety of shades, but if I have to be truthfully honest to you, this corner over here with like the greenish blue shades is where my eye immediately goes to. And my personal favorite shade in here is this gorgeous like dark forest green teal, which is called What. It's in the Metal Crush formula and it is absolutely stunning. I do very much like her Metal Crush formula, and I think this is such a gorgeous shade. Next up we have another palette from her that I really enjoy, and that is the Saint and Sinner palette. This palette I find it so difficult to hold, to show on camera. This palette has a wide variety of shades, and I didn't really buy it for one particular shade in particular. Can't talk. Anyway, there is one shade in here that I'm truly in love with, and this is the olive green here, which is called Immaculate. This is my most favorite like olive green shade. I don't think I own another olive green that comes quite close to this one, because this is like a true olive green. It has a little bit of like those antique gold tones to it, but it's still an olive green, and it doesn't have a very dark black base, and I just absolutely adore it. And the last palette I want to talk about is of course the 10-year anniversary palette, which is my last palette that I'm ever going to own from her. I love the color story of this palette, I love all the shades, but this teal green here, or like green, I don't know, is my absolute favorite. This is a shade that I would say is probably a very close dupe to the one in the Juvia's palette. So if you are interested in owning a shade like this, but you don't want to support Kat Von D, yeah, this one is just a little more reflective, this one is just a little bit deeper, but they are in the same vein. So this shade is stunning, it's my favorite in the 10-year anniversary palette, but if you no longer want to support Kat, you can take the Juvia's palette and you will have pretty much the same shade in there. And now I want to talk about a couple of Urban Decay palettes, and the one I want to start off with is the Ultimate Shadow Box. This is an incredibly old palette. I bought this at least 5 years ago. I don't think you can even find any of these shades anymore. But when I bought the palette, I was clearly attracted to the colorful shades over here, and more in particular Fishnet over here and Peace. Peace happens to be the shade that I'm wearing on my lower lash line today, and it is my favorite. But I'm gonna swatch Fishnet for you as well, because Fishnet is gorgeous too. Fishnet is a little bit in the veins of the Juvia's Place. Let's see, is that similar? Oh no, they still have slightly different tones to them, and I swatched them really stupid. So this is Fishnet over here. My favorite shade is definitely the blue one though, because it's just such a vibrant, beautiful aqua sky kind of blue. Just stunning. Alright, next up we have a favorite of mine from Urban Decay, which people don't tend to talk about a lot, but that is the Moondust palette. And when I bought the palette, I was mostly interested in the Moondust formula because I didn't own any Moondust eyeshadows. My eye was immediately drawn to the blue and the green. So the green is called Light Ear, and it's just a beautiful teal with like pinkish green reflects. But my surprising favorite in the palette turned out to be this shade here, which is called Element. Element is one of the most gorgeous things you've ever seen. It has like a gold base with like a pink duo to it. I'm not sure these are going to swatch very well just because they require a base, but let's try anyway. So this here is a swatch for Light Ear, and I'm not quite sure that it's swatching very well, but it's absolutely gorgeous. Trust me. And here we have Element. And like I said, I don't think this is going to swatch very well because it requires a little bit of a sticky base to show its true potential. But it's absolutely beautiful. It's actually, I would actually say this shade here from Sugar Pill, the Sealed with a Kiss shade, is the eyeshadow version of Element. Next up we have the Urban Decay Electric palette, where picking a favorite shade for me is almost like picking a favorite child. I just simply almost can't, because I love all of the shades here. When I bought this palette, I was immediately attracted to this gorgeous dark teal over here, this beautiful deep purple Urban. But my favorite shade in the palette turned out to be this lime chartreuse green here, of course, which is called Trash. I'm gonna swatch Urban for you as well, because I think Urban is an absolutely phenomenal purple. And I'm not sure Trash is going to swatch very well, because it's a bit like a matte with shimmer in it. But let's first swatch Urban, because Urban is just absolutely stunning. Look what a beautiful, deep, pigmented purple. I love this shade. Sorry, I keep looking at there because this is where my mirror is, and I keep wanting to be in focus when I show you the swatches. So if you think I keep looking somewhere else, it's because I'm looking at the mirror behind me. I don't have a viewfinder, so I literally have to put the mirror behind my camera in order to be able to tell if I'm in focus. And when I'm doing swatches, I really need to be able to be in frame and in focus. Side note. Is that gorgeous chartreuse green? It has a little bit of shimmer through it, and I absolutely love it. If you put this over a white base, this shade really pops. Next from Urban Decay, we have the Urban Decay Naked Heat palette. I don't own any of the original Naked palettes because I always thought they were way too boring and way too basic for me. I love this because it's a warm, smoky eyeshadow palette. The shade that I was originally most attracted to is this one here, which is called Dirty Dog, which is a gorgeous bronzy orange. However, the real shocker here, my favorite shade in the palette is a brown. I know, right? Never in my life have I thought that a favorite shadow in a palette for me would be a brown, but it is. So this is the shade I originally thought I would love the most, which is Dirty Dog, and I still absolutely adore this shade. It is just stunning. But there is something about Amber, the brownie shade, which just looks so beautiful when I put it on. I don't know what it is about Amber. I feel like it almost has like reddish reflex to it, which makes it really warm and deliciously chocolatey and brown, and it's one of the few browns that I think I can pull off and they don't look like poop on my eyes. Last Urban Decay palette I want to show you is my Heavy Metals palette, which is also incredibly hard to hold. I bought this palette basically for this part. Well, no, I'm lying. I love these shades as well, but these are the shades here, so the oh, how do I do this? These are the shades here, so the jewel tones where my heart really lies and is attracted to. And without a doubt, my personal favorite is this here. It is the most beautiful blue, like aqua blue kind of shade. This is Amp. They also have a Heavy Metal glitter liner in that shade, and I own that one as well. Amp is just doing things to my heart. Oh, how pretty and how reflective. Just stunning. Okay, so my camera did overheat and stop recording, so let's finish up the video. Hopefully we have time for that. I have a couple of Anastasia eyeshadow palettes that I wanted to show you, and I'm going to start with the Modern Renaissance. I did not buy the Modern Renaissance for a particular shade. I basically bought this shadow palette because I was interested in the formula, because I had heard so much about it. But my absolute favorite shade in here happens to be this one over here, which is called Antique Bronze. This is a beautiful, pigmented, smooth, again, kind of like chocolatey brown shade. This is a swatch for it here. It glides on and it just looks so beautiful. I don't know, like I said, and maybe if you know me, you know that neutral shades are not where my heart lies, but I think this is such a beautiful shade. Next up we have one of my favorites from Anastasia, and that is the Subculture palette. Yes, I know, this eyeshadow palette cost a lot of uproar, and I can imagine that for a lot of people this is a difficult eyeshadow palette to work with, just because the shadows are so pigmented and so incredibly like powdery. But that being said, I love this palette. I did not buy this palette for a particular shade because I was in love with the color story. But my favorite happens to be this here, which is called Edge. I did not know before I owned this palette that mustards are some of my favorite shadows, and now I do. I love this like camely, mustardy sort of shades. This is stunning, it's pigmented, it's beautiful, and I absolutely love this shade. The next palette is Prism from Anastasia Beverly Hills. Again, I absolutely love the color story of this palette. I was initially very attracted to this purple here and this foresty deep green shade, but what ended up being my favorite is the orange shade, which is called Eternal. I'm going to swatch the green for you and the purple because I think they're absolutely beautiful, but Eternal is where my heart really lies. So let's see, this is the side of the shadows that originally attracted me, Throne being one of the shades that my eye immediately went to. It's a beautiful blackened forest green, and this purple, which is called Dimension, and it is absolutely gorgeous, and if I could include it as well I would, but if I have to be totally honest with you, this orange is my favorite. It's like an orange with like a little bit of pink reflex to it, and it's like a foiled shade, and I just absolutely love it. It's my absolute favorite shade in the Prism palette. Next I want to talk about an eyeshadow palette that probably not a lot of people have seen. This is the Zombie Defense palette from Lunatic Labs. It comes in the shape of a coffin, the actual palette, and then it has a bat-shaped mirror inside. I bought this palette because of the purple, the green and the blue, but my absolute favorite happens to be the green, because I don't think I own anything else quite like it in my collection. It is like a cool toned bluish type of green. It's called Gangrene. I love this shade so much. So this is my favorite shade from the Zombie Defense palette. And I have two eyeshadow palettes that I want to share from Too Faced. The first one is the Semi-Sweet. When I was still building up my eyeshadow palette collection and I didn't have that many neutral eyeshadows, I bought this because I figured this is my kind of neutral eyeshadows. It has like warm tones and there is this pop of blue here. I was immediately attracted to the pop of blue, but what ended up being my favorite is this bronzy brownie shade here, which is called Frosting. The blue is unfortunately also not a very like pigmented shade. It's kind of a disappointing blue. It's a bit sheer. I guess they made it like for people who don't want their blues to be as intense as I do. But I do think the neutral shade, so Frosting, is gorgeous. That applies beautifully. It looks beautiful on the eye and I absolutely adore it. Yes, and we are at 20. The 20th eyeshadow palette I want to show you is the Too Faced Sweet Peach palette. The Sweet Peach palette is another palette that I bought for the color story and not for a particular shade, but the shade that I happen to love the most in here is this one, which is called Bless Her Heart. Bless Her Heart is another one of those antique gold, olivey green types of shades, and I just love this shade. It's my favorite. Look how pretty. So this basically concludes my 20 eyeshadow favorites from 20 eyeshadow palettes. And okay, so something I noticed immediately. I was originally always very attracted to purples. There are almost no purples on this side. I don't know why. I love wearing purples. I just for some reason don't think they're my favorites in any palette. Although, if I could pick more favorites, the purples would probably make the cut as well. But if we look at this side, so all the favorites that I have, I can immediately tell you green dominates. Huh? I mean, I always knew that I love green, but like seeing it like this, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If we include this one over here, the Too Faced shade, we have 7 out of 20 shades which are green or have some sort of a green tint to them. Then we got a couple of blues, we got a couple of oranges, some blues, oh yeah, I already said that, and very few neutrals. yeah, this is really me in eyeshadows. What do you think? Knowing me by now, what do you think about this? Do you think this is kind of a representative of the types of shades that you see me use the most often? I'm very curious. This was a really fun video to do and like kind of an eye-opener because I didn't really know what would come out of it. So I think it's really cool to do. If you guys are content creators, you can feel totally free to do this video. I think it's such a fun idea and I hope more people do it. Thank you so much for watching. You can let me know in the comments what your favorite shades in your palettes are. I would love to know. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and I will see you in my next video. Bye!